But after 5 days of some serious soul searching, I have decided to retire.
Outfield deep at every position now with George Brett at the plate. Set by Gossage, a high drive and deep to right field. It is gone! 3-run home run by George Brett into the third tier of Yankee Stadium, and Brett...
I've accomplished more in my playing days than I ever thought I would.
Put them in front.
Played more games, gotten more hits, more home runs, played a more championship series, more all-star games.
Alexander has to come to him in this situation. Wilson at first, nobody out. Well hit to left center. Back goes Mosby, along with Bell. Forget it! Home run, Brett!
The one thing that I'm proud of most, and I say this sincerely, is spending my whole career with one team.
To Motley for the title.
My baseball career is not ending, it's just taking a different direction. I'm looking forward to my new role and hope I can help this organization get back to the winning tradition the fans of Kansas City deserve. I would like to thank my family for the support over many years, and I'd also like to thank the fans for making me feel at home for the last 20 years. Thank you.
2-2 pitch. Slaps it. Brett makes a fine play and comes home. What a play! Yeah, you can smile, George. Why not?
For more than 2 decades, number 5 played baseball for the Kansas City Royals the way the game should be played, with passion. George Brett loved the game, and it loved him back. He began his career back in 1971, fresh out of high school. He grew up in Southern California, the youngest of 4 boys. He was often compared to his older brothers, and he wanted to do everything they could and do it better. George may not have been the biggest, the strongest, or even the best athlete among the Brett boys, but he had incredible ambition, and he would accomplish everything he set out to do. This is a story about that dedication and ambition.
El Segundo, California is a peaceful, quiet oasis right in the heart of one of the noisiest cities in the world. You're more likely to see a lunchtime crowd gathered outside City Hall than you are to see any of the activities that makes Los Angeles famous. El Segundo is also crazy about baseball, from toddlers playing wiffle ball to high school state titles. And never, ever has there been a baseball player from El Segundo like George Brett.
Got a quote on there and everything, you know?
That's right.
If you stop by El Segundo High, you'll find they have a beautiful Hall of Fame room featuring many famous alums. At the top of the list, Brett and his MVPs, batting titles, and 3,000 hits. John Stevenson is the baseball coach at El Segundo, has been for 35 years. In his office, Stevenson flips through George Brett's stats from 1971, recalling it all like it was yesterday. Stevenson's had many players make it to the big leagues, but he's always had just one favorite, and he's sorry the playing days are over.
The void is now when I get up in the morning and I go to the newspaper and I can't go to the Kansas City box score and see what George did. You know, it's like a little piece of my life has been taken away.
His office is a mini shrine to George, autographed newspaper accounts, and several pictures of a much younger Brett that no doubt still featured that look in George's eye. The coach says he remembers even an 18-year-old George Brett being one terrific clutch hitter.
1, 2, 3.
Stevenson's got another good team at El Segundo this year. A couple of players will probably play some level of pro ball, but nothing like '71, when 7 of Stevenson's 9 starters were drafted.
Paul can't take a bad hop every time. How did it take a bad hop? I think, well, you weren't handling it. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt.
And they take this game very seriously. Craig Cousins is Stevens' assistant. He is and was one of George's best friends from El Segundo, and he remembers what made George special right from the very start.
And he was always the guy running around trying to play with the older guys.
Yep, George Brett has always tried to be one step better, and Cousins still sees the effects of Brett's talent today. Brett is the Babe Ruth of El Segundo, perhaps a bigger star there than in Kansas City, as hard as that might be to imagine. And everyone in Southern California now equates El Segundo with baseball players getting drafted.
In 1960, though, things started to roll when Stevenson showed up. He was loaded with players. I mean, for some reason, this town all of a sudden just started spitting them out. And the string has continued. I actually think that there's probably been a few families that have moved in the hopes that their kids would play to the competition level they want them to play at.
All in all, it was a pretty carefree lifestyle for George Brett as a youngster in Southern California. When he wasn't playing baseball or basketball with his friends, he was here at the El Segundo Beach. In fact, the house George grew up in is less than 2 miles away from the water. It's a pretty average middle-class house that just happens to be on the market for any collectors out there. But it was anything but average 25 years ago when the four Brett brothers and their numerous friends were shooting hoops or playing another sport. Jim Obradovich runs a couple businesses now in Southern California after playing 9 seasons in the National Football League. He was, perhaps more than anyone, the person that pushed George in athletics as a youngster.
Growing up, we couldn't be on the opposite team because him and I always get in fist fights.
Really?
You know, we always had to be the same team, but then no one would play against us, and that was at every sport.
Obradovich also paints a picture of a very ornery George Brett as a child and as a man. In the late 70s, Obradovich was playing for Tampa Bay at Arrowhead against the Chiefs. George and Jamie Quirk visited Tampa's locker room after the game.
And George put my whole uniform on again in the locker room, and he was talking to a reporter. Now, here's a reporter in Kansas City, doesn't know who he's talking to. I couldn't believe it. He probably gave the best interview of my life.
George Brett has a lot of close friends in El Segundo and a lot of great fans. And he still gets back there from time to time, like a couple of years ago when they renamed the baseball field after their legendary high school coach. George wouldn't have missed that for the world. After all, El Segundo is where it all started.
George now couldn't have been this great as a kid all the way growing up. He had to have a few little bad traits about him that only a mom would know about. Mom?
Losing his homework when he was a kid.
When I didn't know the answers, I wasn't a good kid.
I was in a bad
After school, he'd go to the playground, and he'd come home, and I said, "Where's your homework?" His dad would say, "Where's your homework?"
Oh, sure. Uh-oh.
I lost it. Well, you go back to the playground and you find it. Don't you come home until you find it. Well, George, he always was told that the policeman was his best friend. So he goes to the police department. He's afraid to go home.
That's where he went, huh?
So the policeman took him home.
That was it, huh? But a lot of great memories.
Frank, I had a problem. I was the youngest of 4 boys.
Yeah.
So by the time my excuse came around, they have already heard it 3 times. The tolerance had kind of dried out a little bit, and it was we've heard that before.
Yeah, you're right.
My oldest brother, John, should have had the easiest time, but...
Did you ever expect him to accomplish everything he has accomplished in Major League Baseball?
No, I didn't. I thought I was better than he was. I was dead wrong in that count. But my father, hopefully he is in heaven looking down on this, but my father thought he had a chance to be a pretty good ball player. My father was right.
I don't think anyone knows for sure when they first meet someone that they'll become that big a star, but he was, and he is, and he always will be.
One of the great things that happens in sports is when the great players perform in the clutch situations. And time again, when it really counted, George Brett stepped up, and other players talked about wanting to be in that situation, but everybody on our team always wanted George Brett to be the guy at the bat when we really needed it.
Outfield deep at every position now with George Brett at the plate. Set by Gossage, a high drive and deep to right field. It is gone! 3-run home run by George Brett into the third.
Okay, off the goose.
Well, that was the biggest hit of my career up until that point, I think. It was, losing to the Yankees in 76, 77, and 78, and then not making the playoffs in 79. Winning the first 2 games in the playoffs in Kansas City. We didn't want to lose the first game in New York because strange things happen in that city.
Oh, yeah, you
especially if you're
just getting to the ballpark.
Yeah, that's hard enough. I mean, how about beating those guys 3 straight? But it was just weird. I really felt if we lost that game, we were going to lose because the way things went in 76 and 77, and to come up in a situation, UL Washington was sitting ahead of me, and they took Tommy John out of the game to pitch to UL, and he hit a chopper over the mound, and Bucky Dent or Willie Randolph couldn't throw him out. And the first pitch Goose threw to me, I hit it in the upper deck, and Quisenberry came in, and with his magic, he got out of a bases loaded, no out jam, and we ended up winning the ball game. But that was the biggest hit until that time in my career. It was by far the biggest thrill, and at that time.
Guys like George Brett that make the game so exciting, and to be a part of that, he hit some shots heard around the world off of me, but I tip my hat to George. It was, here it is, hit it if you can, and there were a few times that he did.
He would do what it took to win ball games, whether it be breaking up double plays at second base and picking you up and laughing about it, or diving in the infield and catching a ball and throwing somebody out. I mean, he did everything he could in his power to win a game, and you can't love a player for things like that more than George Brett.
August 17th, 1980, you reached hallowed ground at that point. Batting average jumped over 400 out at Royal Stadium.
Well, I remember Mike Barlow was the pitcher, and that's him right there. He came in the night before and struck me out with, I think, 2 guys on in the 9th inning, and I had a chance to redeem myself. He came in the inning before, the hitter before, and loaded up the bases, and I got a double over the left fielder's head. I remember John Wathen was sitting in front of me, and he walked him on 4 pitches, and John said to this day it's the biggest ovation he's ever gotten in his life. John's a good friend.
Yeah, you bet.
I had a chance to visit with him this weekend when the Angels were in town.
Oh, you'll hear from him later, too, by the way.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, you bet. Now, you
my
carried...
old roommate.
That's right. Now, you carried that 400 for a long time.
Longer than I expected. I went over the mark with 6 weeks ago, and everybody came rushing into the locker room after the game saying, are you going to hit 400? And I'm going, well, you guys are a bunch of idiots because there's 6 weeks to go in the season, and no one's done it since, I mean, who was the last guy? Ty Cobb? Little did I know about the 400 mark then, and they said, no, Ted Williams did it in 1941, and to my surprise, I was over it for the next month, and with 2 weeks to go in the season, I found out after talking about it and thinking about it an awful lot, all of a sudden it became very, very important to me to do. And then I went out and I did the one drastic thing that I shouldn't have done, Frank. I went out and tried to hit 400. Instead of having fun and dealing with the media the best I could, I went out and tried to go 2 for 5 every night, or 4 for 10, or 8 for 20, and I ended up getting down to 383. And then when all the media went back to their homes,
back to their holes.
Yeah, I figured, well, there's no chance I can hit 400. Everybody's gone home. I hit 500 the last week and got it back up to 390. So if I had to do it over again, which I'll never have the chance, I learned a very valuable lesson.
After I left here as a manager, one time before he hired Bobby, he said, why don't you be my agent? And I said, I might have made the biggest mistake of my life because I could have made a living off of him. But, you are right. I mean, he was 22 and he was having a good time. He enjoyed playing. He gave you everything on the field. But I had to slow him down a little bit. And if I did one thing I think that maybe helped him in his career, I talked to him more like a father and told him things I thought he could do and couldn't do, and mainly the fact that he had to get his rest. You couldn't burn it at both ends, But he was trying, but he was a good player anyway.
We have the memories, but I'll miss seeing him out on the field every day and busting his rear end every time he hits the ball. And I had the pleasure of playing with him in the minor leagues and the big leagues and managing him. And he's still a good friend and will be forever.
So 2 of your old-time buddies, Whitey Herzog, John Wathen, they know you pretty well, don't they?
Well, I didn't know that you had talked to those people, and I said, well, here's what Whitey's going to say. Well, I tell you, I had that Brett kid when he was about 21, 22 years old. And, he used to like to go out, and he used to like to do this. I mean, I had him pegged. I knew exactly what he was going to say because, you know what? It is the truth.
Sure.
It was the truth.
You were well known to tear it up a little bit. Yeah.
He was a tremendous influence on me. He was. One day I came into Yankee Stadium, and he saw me at 2:30 in the afternoon. And he looked at me, and this is way, way, way back in my playing career, and he said, Jesus Christ, well, how much sleep did you get last night, Brett? How much did you even go to sleep last night, And that voice of his, and I say, well, I got enough sleep. He says, you look terrible. Go take a nap in my office. and I took a nap. He made me a sandwich and gave me a Coke and said, go sleep for a couple hours and hopefully you'll be ready for game time. And, back then I might have had a good game, but, it was just part of growing up. And I learned the hard way. And, who knows, if I would have taken better care of myself when I was 19 or 20 to 30, maybe I wouldn't be retiring today, but it was a good education.
Yeah, and you really can't look at that anyway, so we're not going to worry about that. Let's take a look at some of the stats that maybe you don't even remember that we're going to take a look at to have some fun with. This one you will. Now, you missed more than about 430 games, we figured, since 1975. You're 12th on the all-time hit list now. You've averaged a hit a game in your career. So if you got 430 more hits, you'd be all the way up to 5th on the all-time list. Only Rose, Cobb, Aaron, Musial, would be ahead of you. I mean, have you ever thought about that, or just something that you really had no control over because you played so hard?
Well, Frank, I think about it every day when I get up because I know I've missed 430 games by the way I walk to the bathroom, or walk to the shower, or walk to the kitchen, or whatever. And
hurts.
It's not a good feeling. I mean, Ben Gay does a lot to get you through a day.
Now, I knew you'd get that in there somewhere. About the Ben Gay.
Well, I mean, Ben Gay's been very good for me in my life.
Absolutely, it has been. You're absolutely right.
No, but you know, we use it, so you got to say it.
You've got to talk about it. You've got it.
But you know, it can only do so much, and I've had my share of injuries. I've had 5 knee injuries, and separated this shoulder, and when I was really young, I didn't take pride in getting physically ready for games like I do now, but I didn't stretch properly, and I've had some pulled hamstrings and things like this. But most of the injuries that I've had were of the knee variety, from sliding or getting my feet caught in that stupid turf in Kansas City, or the shoulder injuries, which, you know, if you hurt your shoulder, separate or dislocate your shoulder, or tear cartilage and ligaments in your knee, that's 6 to 8 weeks. Well, I've had 5 of them, or 3 in my right knee, 2 in my left. I still wear a big brace in my right knee when I play, and I've had this shoulder operated on, and this shoulder never operated on, but it could probably use one. So, you know, a lot of it was from playing and stupid plays, routine plays that, you know, you didn't pull your foot out of the turf high enough before you pivoted.
That's right.
And as a result, it torqued your knee, and you tore ligaments in your knee.
And the thing about it is, the next one we're going to look at here is you have played more games on artificial turf than any player in American League history, and it really took its toll.
I think it did take your toll, and I know the Royals are contemplating putting in or real grass, and you know, you have the best groundskeeper in the world in George Toma, and you know, you do a few minor changes to the ballpark. I think you can make Kansas City almost like a Camden Yards. You know, you could do just a minor facelift to it. I think with George Toma's groundskeeping ability and the new drainage systems that they've come up with in the last 20 years, you don't need AstroTurf here, and that's one thing that I'm going to try to relay to the front office when the season's over, when I get involved in as a vice president. If we can do it, and if it's the budget, let's go ahead and do it, because they don't know. I mean, people that work in the office don't know what it does to your body. And it's not a good thing for your body.
Okay, you've had a hit off 626 different pitchers and home runs off 198 different guys. But the toughest guy for you, I mean, can you pick one guy, or were there a couple guys up there that you just, you know, you said, oh, that guy's pitching tonight?
Well, no, not really. I never went into a game like that, because once you go into a game like that, you're defeated.
Yeah, you're done.
And you know, if you got a challenge ahead to you, or ahead of you, the best thing you can do is just say, hey, he's got me in the past, but I'm going to get him tonight.
Yankees lead 4-3. 0-1 pitch to Brett. He hits it deep to right field. That could be out of here. The Royals lead. The Royals lead 5-4 on the home run by Brett.
Okay, you're trotting around the bases now. You have a home run. When do you get any inkling that Billy Martin is up to one of his old tricks?
That was a Sunday afternoon game. I remember Buddy Black started the ball game, and I don't know if it shows here, but let's see right there. I haven't even touched home plate, or I'm just going to walk by. I didn't even see Billy Martin out there talking. You know, I didn't even see him. I was so happy that, yeah, gosh, I got another hit off Goose Gossage finally. You know,
right now
last
there you
one
are
I
in the
got
dugout.
was 1980.
Right. That's right. Now there you were in the dugout. Now they're measuring a bat.
Well, that's about time I'm sitting in the dugout. And at first they were contemplating that I corked my bat, and I didn't cork my bat then, and I don't now. I just got out of my words out of my mouth that if they call me out for using too much pine tar, I'll run out and kill some of those guys. I came to myself. Joe Brinkman had a headlock on me.
That's right.
Yeah. Don't let your kids watch this part.
I have never seen you. You know, I've never seen you argue a call.
No.
Let alone do something like that. That was just an incredible moment for you. You're just a little hyped up there, weren't you?
New York brings out the best in you.
Okay, 1985, of course, the crowning moment. Let's go back for a second.
To Motley for the Tigers.
Your favorite moment, isn't it?
Well, to this day, yeah, in my baseball career. I remember, you know, it was kind of Well, when's it going to happen? We're winning 11-0, I think.
Yeah, is this over yet?
Yeah, we were taking bets in the dugout. We tried to get everybody to put in $100 in the pool. Whoever caught the last ball would get the money.
Oh, so Motley's a rich man for that.
everybody agreed to do it, but then no one paid.
Oh. So Daryl Motley's still waiting.
Yeah, Daryl Motley, we get telegrams from him every year.
That's
right. To see that, after so many near, in 76, 77, 78, 80, 81, losing the mini playoffs to Oakland, 84, Tiger sweeping us 3 straight, and then 85 finally winning it. It was more than I ever thought.
George Brett, looking for the 3,000th hit of his career, smashes it off of Ken Oberkfell into right field, and that is number 3,000 for the great George Brett.
We thought maybe the next night you needed 4 hits, and you got 4 hits in one night.
Well, it was tough. I didn't play the first 2 games of that series because I pulled a muscle in my arm, or tore a muscle. I mean, my arm was black and blue from shoulder to elbow, and they had me up on the training table and cortisone shots the day before, and ice and hot packs, and all kinds of medical treatment between each at bat that day. But time was running out, and it was important to me to get it last year. Because I really thought, Frank, last year was going to be my last year,
right.
and boy, am I glad I stuck around one more year. But it happened so quick. I didn't have time to prepare myself. It happened in 2 hours and 10 minutes.
That's right. Or to
2
enjoy
hours
it that much.
nose,
It didn't seem like you really.
I mean, I got to hit my first at bat, the little blooper to left, and then I hit a little dribbler between first and second for another one. Then I hit a line drive up the middle for my third one, and then that ball was the hardest ball I hit in the whole game. And it happened at 9:30. 9:30, and the game started at 7:30, so 2 hours later. I had no time for all that anticipation, which I thought, boy, I know I'm going to go to bed some night and I'm going to have 2,999 hits, and I'm not going to be able to sleep. Much like the last week of the season, thus far. But it happened so fast, and there was a contingency of people that flew out from Kansas City, and I didn't play the first 2 nights, and everybody, I could tell the look on their face, they weren't happy, and it was just something, you got to do it. The arm feels good enough to go out and play. Let me go out and play, hopefully get 1. All I wanted was 1, and not damage my arm anymore, and got 4 before I knew it, and it was a fantastic thrill for me.
How much did the birth of Jackson, did you see a change in George once Jackson was born and he realized, wow, my little boy is my life?
I've seen a tremendous change in him. I knew he was going to love him, but I don't think either one of us realized how much it was going to change our lives, and he's the greatest thing to ever happen to us.
And you missed him a lot. You were on the road and gone.
Yeah. My wife left him. We were in Seattle and Oakland the last road trip, and she had never been away from him. And her parents came in and stayed at the house and helped Kathleen watch him, and she was gone for 4 days. And she said the same thing I always said every time I came off a road trip. I can't believe how much bigger he got.
Yeah.
Here she's been with him for over 6 straight months, every day. And then she left him for 4 days, and I called her Sunday when we got into Oakland. She was already back from Seattle, and I said, well, how's Jackson? George, I couldn't believe how much bigger he got.
So she said the same thing.
Now that's what I went through every time I went away. But that really had no bearing. I mean, being a father and being a newlywed, that had no bearing. I mean, the game beat me. It really did.
After 5 days of some serious soul searching, I have decided to retire. I've accomplished more in my playing days than I ever thought I would. Played more games, gotten more hits, more home runs, played a more championship series, more all-star games, injured my knee more times than I ever thought I would. The one thing that I'm proud of most, and I say this sincerely, is spending my whole career with one team. My baseball career is not ending, it's just taking a different direction. I'm looking forward to my new role and hope I can help this organization get back to the winning tradition the fans of Kansas City deserve. I'm not going out on top, but I'm not going out on the bottom either. I would like to thank my family for the support over many years, and I'd also like to thank the fans for making me feel at home for the last 20 years. Thank you.
I think it's a great tribute to him to see the support in the fans and behind him, and to see him make the decision to go out and know that it's just not there anymore. And I think that says a lot about a person, and he's given a lot to this area, and this whole area is going to miss him, and I wish him the best. He's very special.
He's never really forgotten his friends either in or out of the game. I mean, he's always stayed loyal, hasn't he?
He's been a great friend.
Now, what do you have to say about your buddy
Jamie's advice to me was, before the press conference, was don't cry. And I held back so many times trying not to cry. I'm starting to cry now by seeing the emotions that I have on my friend.
Yeah, you know, and during the press conference, you leaned over, you were real emotional, started to break up, and you leaned over to Mrs. K. What did you say to Mrs. K when you leaned over there?
I said, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. and by the way, that's a pretty big diamond ring you're wearing.
That's for sure.
No, I didn't say that, but I should have, to try to, you know, make fun and let me relax a little bit. But it was, Frank, the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
The wind and the 1-0 pitch. And there's a high fly ball. Right field, backing up to the wall. Javier at the wall, leaps. Gone! He got it out of here! He did it! He did it! George Brett got it in the bullpen.
I don't understand it. How could the game be so hard for 155 days and then become so easy in one? I really don't understand it. The stress and the emotions and the good times, the bad times. But today was. I wish today would have happened Wednesday night. Or hopefully Wednesday night will have some drama to it, you know, and I won't go out and embarrass myself. But it was, today's a day I'll never forget.
Go out with a bang in Kansas City, go out with a bang in Texas, and come home and spend the rest of my life in Kansas City. Thank you all so much.
I honor him, you know, for retiring when he could play another year, and you know, he's the greatest Royal ever. So people are going to come out of the woodwork just to see us laugh at bats and reminisce and think about the great one. He's the great one.
Savor it in your mind and in your heart. The pitch. Ground ball up the middle. Treadway can't get it. Base hit Brett. Here comes Kozlowski. Tie game.
Just like all the great highlights from a Hall of Fame career that preceded it, this picture will last a lifetime for Royals fans. As gracefully as George Brett ever played the game in Kansas City, he bid it farewell. First with an emotional ride around the ballpark that he made famous, and then a gentle and sincere peck on the plate that he'd stepped on hundreds of times before.
I mean, it was just a special night all the way around. My teammates made me feel so welcome and so happy, and the fans, of course, which they've done for the last 20 years, had made me feel at home.
A special night for many reasons, not the least of which is the legend of George Brett. With the Royals down 2-1 in the 8th inning, the legend strode to the plate.
I mean, it was one of those things where we were just begging for an opportunity for him to get up there late in the game, and if he did, he knew he was going to do something great.
Just like they write him in Hollywood, George came through with a game-tying hit. A few minutes later, Brett walked off the field at Kauffman Stadium for the final time, pulled for a pinch runner. But he was back out there 20 minutes later when the Royals won dramatically in the bottom of the ninth. It was the young kid that won it, not the old veteran. But maybe, just maybe, there was some symbolism in this celebration.
He's just a perfect example of how to play the game. You know, I didn't get to see him play a whole lot when he was younger, but people tell me he plays exactly the same way now as he did then. So, I mean, that's just the way to play the game.
It's not likely we'll ever see anyone like number 5 again, so this kiss goodbye will have to last a lifetime.
One of the greatest players to ever play the game, George Brett.
George Brett went out in style. Called from the dugout by Rangers president George W. Bush Jr.
To a tremendous ovation, Brett was presented with a crystal in the shape of Texas. Brett followed that with another ceremonial stroll to home plate with the Royals lineup card. And headed from the opposite dugout, none other than the strikeout king himself, Nolan Ryan. And this won't be the last time these two get together. They have a date in 1999 in Cooperstown.
If you have to share it with anybody, I mean, you couldn't ask anybody better to share it with.
Sprinkled throughout the crowd in Arlington, George's wife Leslie, family, friends, fans, and even a talk show host of some renown. But this was Brett's day. And just like his storybook life, this chapter had a happily ever after ending. After flying out to left in his first two at-bats, Brett fulfilled one wish, getting one of those grinders to second and running it out hard, exactly the way he played for 20 years. Then in the ninth, as if scripted by Hollywood, the crowd was treated to a Nolan Ryan tribute on the Diamond Vision, followed by Brett's final appearance ever at the plate, and of course, he delivered.
And then the last at-bat, it was very emotional. The most emotional at-bat I've ever had. More so than Kansas City, yeah. Okay, I knew it was my last one. You know, in Kansas City, I knew I'd get 12, 13, 14 more.
Number 3,154 and last. He later scored on a Gary Gaetti homer, and just like that, Brett's career was over, but he left no regrets.
Hopefully I'll never swing again. Hopefully I don't ever want to swing a bat again. Except for the old-timer game in Kansas City.
So Brett emerged from the clubhouse no longer a player, but forever etched in franchise history as the greatest to ever wear royal blue and white. Number 5, thanks for the memory.
About 25 miles south of downtown Houston, you'll find the small town of Alvin, Texas. Population, 21,000. The pace is slow, and the folks here know the meaning of a hard day's work. This is Texas, where the roots run deep and the legends grow tall. The biggest legend in Alvin made his name playing baseball. A former pitcher with a fastball like a flamethrower. They call it Texas Heat. They call him the Express. Nolan Ryan. Nowadays, you can find Nolan Ryan not on a pitcher's mound, but somewhere near one of the two banks that he owns, appropriately named the Express Bank. Ryan is baseball retired, but his legend in Alvin lives on. They've still got his jersey up at the high school where the baseball stadium bears his name. In a state where football is king, Nolan Ryan is royalty.
Quite obviously, Nolan Ryan has made quite an impression on the small town of Alvin, Texas, almost as big an impression as he made on Major League Baseball. He threw 7 no-hitters. He's baseball's all-time strikeout king. One of the greatest pitchers the game has ever known, who says one of the best batters he ever faced was George Howard Brett.
The thing about my career, it spans such a long period of time, and so if I had to rate the top 10 hitters that I ever faced in both American National League over a 25-year span, George would have to be in that top 10 list. I don't know that I could list them 1 through 10, but he would certainly be in the top 10.
Over his illustrious fastballing career, Nolan Ryan recorded 5,714 strikeouts, 18 of which belonged to Brett. But George also collected 29 hits against Ryan. Only Jim Clancy, who once pitched for the Toronto Blue Jays, gave up more Brett base licks.
Well, as much as I faced him, you know, I don't know what his lifetime batting average was off of me, but I felt like that he always hit pretty well off of me.
Out behind second base, that's Fry. Throw to first, not in time.
He wasn't an easy person to strike out. So it doesn't surprise me as many times as I faced him that I only struck him out 18 times. That may sound like a lot of times, but if you put it in relationship to how many times I faced him for the length of time, that isn't a lot of strikeouts.
Ryan made his final Major League appearance on September 22nd of 1993. His last pitch went to Dave Magadan. Earlier, he'd given up a grand slam to Dan Howard. With torn ligaments in his right elbow, Ryan tipped his hat that night to a standing ovation at Seattle's Kingdome. But it wouldn't be his last time in uniform. 11 days later, he joined Brett at home plate in Arlington Stadium to exchange lineup cards. It was a special moment, perhaps a preview to a meeting the two will have in Cooperstown in 1999. George Brett collected his last base hit that day. Ryan watched from the dugout.
Right, I would have loved to pitch that game. I wished I would have stayed healthy last year where I could have, and it would have been neat to face him 4 more times at the end of his career and try to get him out. And I was glad to see him get a hit that last game.
Not totally removed from baseball now, Nolan Ryan is still a part of the Texas Rangers as a special assistant to the team president. Retirement means he has more time for his family, and once again, baseball is in the mix. Son Reed is a pitcher for Southwest Conference champ TCU, and why not with Nolan Ryan helping the pitching staff. Back in Alvin, he's as big as they get. A major league pitching phenomenon. A favorite son. A hometown hero.
You know what? I never realized I never hit a home run off him. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because he had a tendency late in his career to drill guys that did.
How about Nolan? Now he has a license to print money.
What a great name for a bank, too, the Express Bank.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm learning a lot from watching the show tonight.
He's one of the class guys in all sports, isn't he?
Definitely. I was really looking forward. There was a rumor going around that he was going to pitch that last game in Texas, and I knew that was going to be my last game, even though I didn't announce it. And I said, what a great way to go out facing him. And it was unfortunate what happened to him, but you know, if he would have pitched, I might not have got to hit my last at bat.
That's right.
So I'm kind of glad he didn't. But it would have been a great thrill facing him.
That's great. Well, we're stick around because we got a lot more things that you may not have remembered about that career. Here's a humble word from one of George's closest friends.
I have been fortunate to be around greatness in you. I've been fortunate to be around the best. And that has rubbed off. That is such an inspiration to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted there's such a wonderful turnout for one of the greatest baseball players in Royal history, George Brett. He is not only a good athlete, he played hard, and he played to win. And that's what it's all about.
Tonight is one of the most special moments in Royals history. George Brett, the greatest player ever to wear a Royals uniform, is being inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame. And the famous number 5 retired forever. So George, thank you so much for giving us 20 years of dramatic and thrilling baseball, and for what you have meant to our city, our fans, and the organization. Remember, George, that there will always be a big place in our hearts for you and your family. We love you, George.
I have been in this organization more than half my life. And I can honestly say that that's the best half of my life I've lived. I want to thank you all for all your support for the last 20 years. I want to thank you all for making me a Kansas City citizen. And I want to thank my teammates behind me and my teammates that are no longer here, my managers, my coaches, my trainers, my owners, and everybody I've been associated with in this organization for helping me make this great contribution. Thank you so much.
I love the guy. He's one of the greatest players I've ever seen.
We should run him for president in '96.
George is the real reason that sports are big in Kansas City.
If you only knew how good you made me feel. It's amazing.
Savor it in your mind and in your heart. The pitch. Ground ball up the middle. Treadway can't get it. Base hit, Brett. Here comes Kozlowski. Tie game.
In 1983, George Brett made a promise to his friend Keith Worthington, a victim of ALS. George's promise was to continue Keith's fight to find a cure for ALS, which is commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. As honorary chairman for the ALS Association Keith Worthington chapter, George played an important role in helping raise $1.5 million for projects and research. He hosts the annual George Brett Celebrity Golf Tournament and auction, and Lou Gehrig Night at Kauffman Stadium to benefit ALS. His contributions to ALS research were vital in a major breakthrough identifying a defective gene that causes ALS.
There simply are not words adequately to express our gratitude to George Brett for what he has done to promote research in this area. This is a devastating disease. It is as malignant, as horrible as any in medicine. The terrible devastation that one saw in the life of Lou Gehrig himself has been repeated in every ALS patient, and we are just profoundly indebted for everything that George Brett has done to promote research, and look forward to continuing to work with you and with him over the coming years to fulfill that promise.
Although George Brett earned batting titles and gold gloves, he will also be remembered for his efforts to create a future in which Lou Gehrig will be best remembered not for his disease, but for his prowess on the field of dreams.
It's tough to imagine how Lou Gehrig must have felt when ALS made him put down his bat. Last fall, I put down my bat. It was a tough decision, but it was my choice. Those affected by ALS don't have a choice. Their bodies are slowly paralyzed and their voices silenced. ALS has no boundaries. Anyone can be hit. Even though there have been major breakthroughs in research, there's still no cure. Help us win the fight against ALS.